All right, welcome back to Salt City Counseling, everybody. Once again, my name is Scott Carter. I'm a licensed therapist here in the beautiful state of Utah. In this video, I'm going to talk about narcissism. I'm going to talk about narcissists. I think I'm basically going to title this video, How I Can Tell Right Off the Bat Whether or Not Someone is a Narcissist. This video was kind of inspired by something that happened recently. And it was just a friendly reminder that this happens quite a bit. I get asked this question quite a bit. Like people will ask me, and it's happened a lot in like a clinical setting, but it's also what happened like maybe in a casual setting, maybe a social setting where someone's like, I wonder if I'm a narcissist, or do you think I'm a narcissist? Um, is it possible that I'm the narcissist? And so I'm going to get into here pretty in detail. It's like there's kind of a very interesting and very important thing here to know and keep in mind and remember about narcissism and narcissists in general. And so I'm going to talk about here how I can tell pretty quickly, pretty easily whether or not someone is a narcissist. If you have asked yourself this, if you've been like, am I the narcissist? And maybe thought about asking a therapist, or maybe you ask other people, or maybe it's a question that comes up a lot. And I'm going to pin this down, what narcissists do and what narcissists don't do. And so before I get into that, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. If you're new here, definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Let's see. You can send me if your questions, scottc at saltcitycounseling.com if you'd like. Go check out my new website if you're in a high conflict divorce or custody. Still kind of bare bones. I'm still kind of getting some stuff together. I'm a busy guy. Got a lot of irons in the fire. I don't want to burn out, but highconflictcommunity.com. The link is in the description below. If you really like my content, if you like my content on borderline narcissism, parenting pro tips, healing narcissistic trauma, then you can hit the tip jar. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. For those of you who have already sent me some gratuity, thank you so much. I super appreciate it. Be sure to check out my series on healing narcissistic trauma. I publish those videos every Sunday. And go check out my video on the results of narcissistic trauma to maybe see if you kind of fit that cluster of behavior that I believe it shows the indicators of narcissistic trauma. And mostly it has to do with feeling small. Overly self-critical, afraid to show mistakes, and those types of things. So let's get into this. So from time to time, I have people that will ask me. This has come up a lot. This has come up more frequently than a lot of things. People will say, "Do you think I'm a narcissist, or do you think it's possible that I'm a narcissist, or I might be the narcissist in the situation?" And usually when people ask me that question, right off the bat, my answer immediately is no. And here's why. Narcissists never ask that question. True narcissists, true narcissistic personality disorder, they will never, ever, ever ask a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, a professional, a doctor, whether or not we think that they are a narcissist. A true narcissist, true NPD, true narcissistic personality disorder will never, ever, ever do that. Okay, so there's several things to keep in mind here. Number one is, and I'm going to explain that. I'm going to explain that. But number one is that usually when someone asks me if I think they're a narcissist, it usually means that there's a narcissist in their life. Narcissist, like, you know that Spider-Man meme where there's like 3 Spider-Mans and they're all pointing at each other? I feel like narcissists are like that. Oh, I'm not the narcissist, you are. And so usually when I encounter someone that is openly asking, like, do you think I'm a narcissist? Am I a narcissist? Then I start going, who's a narcissist in your life, right? It's most often the partner or the parent. Most frequently their partner. And so if someone comes to me and they go, hey, do you think I'm a narcissist? Or actually had this happen once where someone introduced himself as a narcissist and I was like, let's have a look at your partner. And I'll get back to that one. But that's an interesting thing is that narcissists, true NPD, they have this tendency, they're notorious, man, for convincing their partner that they are actually the narcissist and get those people to doubt themselves, okay? So narcissists will never ask a professional, do you think I'm a narcissist? And there's several things at play here. And I've talked about this in other videos. Like, the most important thing I try to keep in mind about narcissists that, I read this in an article years ago and it put it all together for me. And that is that narcissists have this frantic effort to avoid vulnerability. Sitting in front of a therapist and saying, and opening oneself up to say, hey, will you scrutinize me and tell me and to help me determine whether or not I have this personality disorder, is a level of vulnerability that you will never, ever, ever, ever find a narcissist doing. Ever. A true narcissist will never do that, okay? It's important to keep in mind, narcissists, true narcissists, and when I say narcissist, I mean diagnosable NPD or narcissistic personality disorder, never, ever, ever seek out a therapist in an attempt to get help for themselves. It's not a thing. That doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. Antisocials never do that. Borderline, they do. Borderline definitely does. But never, ever, ever does a true narcissist go to a therapist and say, will you help me? And the reason being is that's a highly vulnerable situation. A narcissist will never allow themselves to flip-flop their sense of perceived superiority, or the sense of right, I have this superiority over you. They will never ever relinquish that. The only reason that narcissists look for therapists is honestly, except for I've only seen two scenarios that a narcissist looks for a therapist. One, they've been court ordered, and the court can order a completion of like anger management or substance abuse treatment or something like that. And in that case, they will do that in order to fulfill a court requirement. But that's usually kind of a dumpster fire, trying to do therapy in those situations. But it's not that common. It's actually not that common. The other reason, the number two reason why, and this is actually the number one reason, by far, this is the most common reason, is a narcissist seeks a therapist because they're trying to gather their henchmen. And I've talked about this in other videos. I did a whole other video on this. That one of the things that bothers me or troubles me the most about people with narcissistic personality disorder is their bizarre, scary ability to gather their henchmen. They just can seem to sniff people out, and there are just certain people that almost like instantaneously or within a very short amount of time become their flying monkeys. So was Wizard of Oz reference right there, right? Just sort of your mindless henchman. And so a lot of narcissists are looking for therapists that they can use as their henchmen. Now, that either looks like they're seeking couples counseling and they want the therapist to take their side so that they can gang up and control their spouse. Unfortunately, folks, the truth is many, 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 many therapists fall for this. I wish they didn't. I wish there was better training for it. I wish there was better education for it. We have to cover a lot of ground, folks. We have so many things that we are expected to be knowledgeable about or proficient in, and frankly, the pay sucks. The amount of things that we're expected to be proficient in, the amount of pay that we get, it's sorry, that's just unrealistic. It's just unrealistic. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of narcissists will seek a therapist because they want a henchman to help them gang up on their spouse. I've heard many, many stories, more than I can count, of someone telling me, yeah, I went to couples counseling, therapist pinned him down as a narcissist right away, and we never went back. Okay, so narcissists are always shopping around, finding that therapist to help be their henchman. Okay, the other way that they want a therapist to be their henchman is to take their side in things, convince that therapist that they're the victim, that they're the ones getting screwed, and now they've got a professional with some letters behind their name to back them up in court or whatever the case may be, family court usually. And so those are the only two scenarios I've ever heard of a narcissist deliberately seeking a therapist. But as you can see, right, there's like, especially when they're trying to gather their henchmen with a therapist, it's like, I'm the boss, I'm the supervisor, you're doing my bidding, you're doing what I want you to do. And usually too, if a therapist is like, well, hang on a second, we have a problem here, you did this or you did that, then usually the narcissist will turn on the therapist. I've had this happen. I thought you knew what you were doing. I thought you were competent. I thought you were smart. You obviously don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you could be a real therapist. I got that one once. I had a narcissist on the phone. Actually, he was screaming at me, and his words were, "There's no way you're a real therapist." And unfortunately, they are awful like that. So, in conclusion, if you have ever sat down in front of a therapist and said, "I might be the narcissist. Will you tell me so?" That almost immediately disqualifies you. Like that's not necessarily in the book, but I've talked to tons of therapists that take that as immediately ruling out narcissistic personality disorder when the individual is asking honestly, "Do I have narcissistic personality disorder?" Now, as a side note, I will say that the people who have a partner who's narcissistic, especially if they've been with that person for a long time, they can show a lot of these traits. However, almost as a complete disqualifier, and I can do a separate video on why I feel like the partner of the narcissist takes on some of those traits. Really, I mean, the short answer is it's a survival mechanism, and a loss of identity, a loss of self. And so, but if you relate to that, by the way, make sure you go check out my Healing Narcissistic Trauma series. So, but again, when people ask honestly, "Do you think I'm a narcissist?" Oh, I was gonna tell that quick story too. This dude, I met this dude. I goes, I'll protect his name. I'll give a different name, but let's just say "Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm a narcissist." And I was like, "You sure about that, Dave?" And immediately I knew that was dubious. Narcissists don't do that ever, right? And so he goes, "Well, my wife says I am," and then it's like, well, then she probably is the narcissist. And he goes, "Well, she's a psychologist," and I was like, "Does she practice psychology? Because that's unethical. It's unethical to diagnose your husband as a narcissist if you're a practicing psychologist, right?" And that's very dubious, and you can get in some trouble with that one. And so, I asked more questions. Well, she's not a practicing psychologist. She just has her bachelor's in psychology. And I'm like, let me get this straight. A lady with a bachelor's degree in psychology has diagnosed, not even qualified or able to do so with a bachelor's degree, her husband with narcissistic personality disorder. Yeah, guess who's the real narcissist, folks? Easy peasy, man. So anyways, those are my thoughts on how you can tell if you're a narcissist, and things, how I can tell people are not a narcissist, and things that narcissists never do. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.